thanking our incredibly excellent library staff for their willingness to step up this week in the absence of a library director. I really appreciated their willingness to step up and help with things to get ready for tonight's board meeting, as well as continuing on with their usual activities. So I just
Are we
wanted
going to use the
acknowledge
microphones?
that.
Microphones?
Okay, so I guess we'll begin with roll call. I'm Karen Hill. I was vice president, and since our president resigned, I stepped up into this role for at least tonight.
Jim Bowen, board trustee.
George Allen, trustee.
The next item on our agenda, item 3, is the approval of an agenda. We do have a few changes we would like to make. First, Lauren, our children's librarian, has asked if she could be moved up earlier on the agenda to give a report on summer reading, and then she would be able to leave.
And I'm going to ask George to correct me if I get anything wrong. Under new business on your agenda, you'll see listed the director review procedures and material selection and book displays. Those should have been listed under old business, but at this time, we don't have anything to discuss because we don't have a director right now. And we will later talk about policy related to getting things into our agenda ahead of time. But we don't have anything to discuss for either of those items at this time.
Do we need motions to?
Could I have one more thing? The other thing that is not on the agenda is communication, is letters received. I'd like some input whether you would like those to be under visitors' comments, which we did last time, or whether you'd like to add it under D, under communications. Do you have any preferences?
I think it makes sense to read the letters after or during visitor comments, either before or after under that item of the agenda, and leave more official communications under communications.
Okay.
And we will need a motion to do all those.
All right, so I move to approve the agenda as adjusted, moving Lauren's comments to the beginning and moving the items indicated from new business to old business.
I will second.
Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you for that. Next is approval of our minutes. We have minutes from both the May 20th meeting as well as the May 26th meeting. We'll start with the May 20th meeting.
We do have the minutes submitted by Josh. We also have some proposed corrections and clarifications to the minutes. We are going to recommend that those be referred back to Josh to be updated before the minutes are published officially on the library and the city website.
Do we want to address any specific clarifications now, or do we want to leave that until we've had a chance to forward those clarifications to Josh and see whatever edits are necessary?
Some, I think, are some pretty basic explanations and changes. Just in the interest of accuracy, I really appreciate Mr. Palladino's time doing all of these minutes. That was a lot to cover after 2 very long meetings. He did make some amendments early on, some changes, and then we got another update more recently. I did send that updated minutes to our city lawyer, Jack Lovinger, and showed him the paragraph that was written in the minutes about what he stated, and he asked for this update to be included. Do you want me to just pass that to you, or do you want me to read his changes?
I think it's sufficient that the board accept Mr. Lovinger's corrections to his own state, to the public record of his own statements.
Okay. And then I guess one comment that I had is under board comments, it said some different things that Jim Bowen and I said, and I would like that corrected to just say Jim Bowen and Karen Hill read from page 39 in the Michigan Public Library Trustee Manual. It said that book selections must reflect the entire community. We did not say no exceptions. That was pretty stringent. Do you want to comment about the?
And sorry, which item under the agenda did that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Was that under board comment?
Board comment, the very first marking.
There's one other part where Brianna was talking about following curation standards, and this is going to be a question for Josh. The last sentence says, the discussion about changing the library board's curation policy is opposed to her education and everyone in the room.
Yeah.
I,
Didn't quite track that.
we're not exactly sure what he was referring to. I don't believe that's a quote,
I think that's a phrase that could certainly be clarified.
so, yeah.
Yeah, let's readdress that.
And there was another area when we talked about book displays, and I know there was a difference between selecting books and promoting books. And I know you wondered about promotion, and I know one of the comments I made is, where do we mark a line of where promotions begin and end? And my thought was, sometimes our wonderful staff does a book display, that's a promotion. Sometimes they just have a stack of books on Facebook of, here's the new books in our collection this month. Does that count as a promotion? So that was my point. I wasn't talking actively promoting the book. There was fine lines in promotion. I don't think that came through in the minutes.
So you'll request that your remarks as recorded be adjusted.
Mm-hmm. Anyway.
My only other one is toward the end of new business. This is from the May 20th meeting. Josh listed, Crest moved that the board create a subcommittee to address materials acquisition policy. Alan seconded the motion, passed with unanimous consent. I don't believe that took place.
Right.
Okay.
We
All right.
should address that, which is that what happened was that we created a subcommittee specifically to create a procedure for how new policy is added to the manual.
Right.
That was the mandate of the subcommittee. So that got confused with this idea of addressing the materials selection policy, which the subcommittee did not address.
Very good. Thanks. Okay, I'm now moving on to the May 26th minutes. Item number 9, duties of the interim director. Two things, I don't recall that we talked about that, and then it listed information relating to Leanne Rumler. Leanne wasn't at that meeting.
She came in at the end, but she did not speak.
Right, so,
This information was acquired by the board after the meeting. This is not something that happened at the meeting.
okay,
Yeah.
all right. Under board comments, I added that Josh said he was suspicious that someone on the board had leaked the information sent out, that was not included, and that I had replied to his, I put it near accusation, and stated that I didn't know anything about the material that was sent out until after the May 20th meeting, and that I contacted Scott Crest the following Monday, May 23rd, and Scott still didn't know about the information at that time.
So you're requesting that your remarks under board comment be amended?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not, it wouldn't be under roll call, but other mentioned also present should be Tom Thompson, who was the city lawyer. His name is not anywhere in that document of the minutes.
Of the minutes
He
of
did
the
not speak,
26th
but he was
meeting.
present.
Under the, so,
26th meeting.
under the 26th meeting, the presence of
Yeah,
Tom
we're on
Thompson.
May 26th, correct. And in all fairness to Brianna Barton, under communications, the only sentence is Brianna Barton addressed the board and the community. I would like, and be honest, because so many misperceptions I feel are out in the community good, bad. I would really recommend including the fact sheet that she took the time to prepare. I think it really was very specific, and it came right from the computer of what items are in the collection, how many she acquired versus what has been there before. I think that would clarify a lot of things to people that may or may not have been at our last meeting.
Yes, as an official communication to the board from the director, I would certainly agree that those documents should be linked to the minutes from this meeting.
Thank you for that. And the only other thing, under reception of resignation of Brianna Barton, it says that Hill made the motion to accept Barton's resignation. I would like to add, with regret, citing Ms. Barton's many accomplishments. Anything else? Okay. I think that is it. Thank you for taking the time to do that. So normally we would make a motion to accept minutes, but we're not going to do that until Mr. Palladino has had the opportunity to amend those,
Sure.
and then we'll print the corrected versions, and those will be voted on at the next meeting, if I understand correctly.
Do we need to make a motion that we will send the list of requested edits to the secretary? Okay, so I will move that we will send the list of requested edits to the secretary to be added to the minutes before they're published.
Second.
Any discussion? Vote to approve or to agree with that? Say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next, we will ask for Lauren to be able to give her summer presentation.
Hello. All right, I was asked to come in and talk to the board about the summer reading program, and I'm really excited about it. It's one of the reasons why I have chosen to stay. We have a lot of events planned. June 20th at 4 o'clock, we will have our kickoff celebration, and it will be here in this room. We will have a family movie night watching the movie Luca. We have Toddy the Turtle and Penelope coming to the library, which is exciting. Our theme for summer reading this year is Oceans of Possibilities, which I'm really excited about. We have the Toledo Zoo, a virtual Toledo Zoo visit here at the library, where we get to kind of go behind the scenes and ask questions to people who work there. We have Touch a Truck coming in June, which is exciting. It'll be in the lower parking lot. We'll have all kinds of big equipment, big trucks, cement mixers, all that stuff for kids to come and look at and hopefully check books out about them. We're going to have a rock and roll beach party by Dynamic Assemblies coming at the very end. And then we have our water slide party at Camp Machendo scheduled. So if you complete the program, you can come to our water slide party. To complete the program this year, we are actually starting our online reading logs. So you can use the Read Squared app to log your reading minutes. And my recommendation and the recommendation from the education department is to have kids read 20 minutes a day. So if you read for 20 minutes a day, you can come in and you get a prize every week. So I'm pretty excited about that. You can also sign up for the summer reading program on this app. It's just great. There's little missions you can do with secret codes that are events, so you can get even more prizes. There are educational games within the app that kids can unlock by reading. So there's word searches, multiplication facts, that kind of thing, which I think kids are really going to respond well to. We also have many prizes being donated at this time. Some prizes donated have been from McDonald's. They have donated to us the little meal cards and the bookmarks where they read so much and they get a free Happy Meal. Cottage Inn Pizza has donated different coupons to us, thankfully, and the Silos Fun Park, so some free golf, some mini golf. We've had donations of ice cream cones from the Finish Line Family Restaurant, so thank you to them. and also from Dairy Queen. So I'm working on a few more sponsors. So if there's anyone out there who would like to donate to the summer reading program, I'm going to plug that right now. But yeah, we're really excited about that. So do you have any questions for me? Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for rearranging the agenda for me. I really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Lauren, for your time coming tonight and also for all your hard work setting up all those wonderful programs. I hope a lot of children take advantage of it and families come out and really support the Summer Reading Challenge. I know it's a fun theme and I think it'll be a great program here for people. The next item on our agenda is the visitors' comments, and people can step up to the microphone. I'd like to remind everyone, I would hope everyone would continue to be respectful and to also respectfully limit your time to 3 minutes. Thank you.
And please make sure to turn the microphone on before
And
you
say your
start.
name, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
State your full name.
please.
Rules. Gotta work off the rules.
Thank you.
So I am Tracy Fowler, a Jefferson Township, Hillsdale County resident. So I wanted to take this moment to thank you all for stepping up in the hot mess. I appreciate sitting here watching y'all regroup and realizing what we realize is this building and what it does is really,
That's all right, thank you.
This building and what it does is significant for this community, and not just for the lover of books or the person who loves to read, but equally important as a community resource hub, right? So things like computers for those who might not have internet access, or a computer itself to fill out a job application or complete their high school education, and so many other things, right? Fill out insurance forms for our elders. Maybe just to have that camaraderie to come and see their peers and get rid of that loneliness and avoid some depression, right? And so many educational things that we just heard about. I was just glowing as she was saying it, because we know how much children lose educational foot lives during the summer, right? And so to have these things and to hear the educational basis and the variety of topics is just, I think, a really beautiful thing. And I think it really does tell us what a beautiful establishment this public library is as a hub for us as a community, for a lot of different reasons and age groups and all of that. So again, thank you guys for stepping up, and I hope you rebuild in a really beautiful way.
Thank you.
Thank you for your kind words.
All right, is this actually on?
It should
Sounds
be.
like
Okay. Yes, I'm Joshua Fincher. While I think that the proposed policy does go a long way to covering and addressing the publication issues with Josh's proposal, what I don't think it does is address the formatting and stylistic issues that engendered so much animus, controversy, and anger in the community. I would propose that formatting-wise, you might want to add 3 specific things to the way that proposals are structured. One would be an opening preamble that was a philosophical statement, a rationale, and an explanation of the effects of the proposed policy. This would prevent all of the misunderstandings and also give the public pre-notice before the meeting, rather than having to kind of think on their feet with potentially disorganized apologia from some proposer. Second, I would say that key terms within the proposal need to be very explicitly and clearly defined. There was much controversy about what does activism mean? What does this mean? What does that mean? None of those things were actually addressed in the written proposal, so nobody was able to consider them beforehand. Third, and I believe this would have been covered if this had gone forward in a revision process, there does need to be, or there should be a recommendation that people observe courteous, respectful, and explicit and clear language in the writing of their proposal. I think, for example, the way that Josh used the word perversion in his proposal, a term that many community members might find deeply derogatory, disturbing, and unclear and disrespectful to the community. Finally, I would say that I am still somewhat disturbed when Josh said that he did not need to follow the manual, or it was alleged that he didn't follow the manual because he didn't take an oath to it. That is a recipe for bad public governance if board members can simply make such a statement and a rationale and then disregard the rules. I think that a statement from every board member saying that the rules in the manual are binding on all board members in all board policy will go a long way to restoring public confidence, as well as making people and reassuring them that the board keeps its own members accountable and follows its own rules. Otherwise, why pass any amendments if people can simply disregard them? All right.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Penny Jansen, and I have been a mental health therapist in this area for over 20 years. And I just want to say how important the voice is, and how important the written word is. Every week I tell people and I ask people to read a book that might be helpful, and I know a lot of those books were written with tears on each page from experience that they might have had that was traumatic to them. And I just want to make sure that the voices of people do not get banned just in an erratic way. And I think that it's really important to make sure people have a voice. Every day, practically, I ask people to journal, because I think writing your thoughts and feelings is very valuable and important. And I just wanted to say how much I value libraries and the work that is represented by the authors that present their thoughts and their feelings, and how important it is to give people a voice. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jamenda Springer. I live at 89 South Howell Street. I've just been thinking a lot since our last meeting, since your last meeting, get out of that, I just want to be, there were a lot of people at the end of the meeting that said they wouldn't bring their kids to the library if changes were made to the books, or, you know, I think there's a lot of feeling of threat. And I was thinking about how it just needs to be said over and over again that this is kind of, I think Josh's proposal is about making a more neutral, nonpartisan space in the library, not according to anybody's beliefs, really just trying to make a place at the library that all the community kids can come and all the parents can feel good about. So I just think that that needs to be really stressed. I also really think that in looking for a director, I hope that the search finds somebody that is not connected to the ALA, which seems kind of crazy to think about hiring a director for the library that isn't connected to the ALA, but in reading all the materials on the ALA website, and I've never read all of it, but a lot of it, it's very concerning in terms of what our community, I think the ideals of our community are, and versus the ideals of the ALA. So I would just highly encourage the search to not focus on ALA connection. That was all I was gonna say. I thought there was one more thing. I guess I also just think like a new director really should, I mean, I think the focus has to be like rebuilding trust in the library. But again, that neutral space for the children's section, I think it's really important to encourage diversity in the adult section, but in terms of children, the children's section, I just think it needs to be treated differently in our community. And our community does a lot of things really interestingly, sorry.
Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Ted Jansen, Hillsdale City taxpayer. From the Michigan Library, Public Library Trustee Manual, page 4, chapter 9. The library board has the responsibility of championing the cause of intellectual freedom, which includes fighting censorship efforts. This responsibility calls for the right of all members of the community to obtain information at the library. This is a challenging and sometimes uncomfortable responsibility, but it is you agreed to support when you became a library board member. The selection of library materials is a central activity in support of intellectual freedom. Collection development includes a selection policy proposed by the library director and approved by the board that reflects the library's objectives in providing materials. It also supports the right of all members of the community to have access to a wide, objective range of materials, including items some people might find objectionable. Our library's collection should reflect the culture and the diversity of the entire community. As was previously stated by the gentleman, there was a trustee who said, I'm not bound by the Michigan Public Library Trustee Manual. It wasn't in my oath. When it comes to public trust, a hallmark of public service is that the services delivered are governed by a code of ethics. The question at hand is that the Michigan Library, Hillsdale Library Board trustee, is it governed by a code of ethics? Does this body agree to abide by the ethics statement and the policies as contained in the Michigan Public Library Trustee Manual as found in the 2021 edition? And part of that ethics statement, trustees, in fulfilling their responsibilities, shall not be swayed by partisan interest, public pressure, or fear of criticism. Trustees shall not engage in discrimination of any kind and shall uphold libraries' patrons' rights to privacy in this use of library resources. Trustees must distinguish clearly in their actions and statements between their personal philosophies and attitudes and those of the library, acknowledging and supporting the formal position of the board, even if they disagree. Trustees must avoid situations in which personal interests might be served or financial benefits gained as a result of their position for access to privileged library information for either themselves or others. Trustees shall immediately disqualify themselves whenever the appearance of a conflict of interest exists. Trustees should not interfere with management responsibilities of the director or the supervision of library staff. And most of all, trustees shall support the efforts of librarians in resisting censorship of library materials by groups or individuals. I'm asking this board to put on to the next agenda to formally adopt the Michigan Public Library Trustee Manual and its code of ethics and swear to uphold it. Thank you.
Thank you.
If we don't have any more visitor comments at this time, we will read some of the letters that have been submitted, either directly to individual board members or some that were left here at the library. We can start with Jim. Are you ready? Do you have a couple?
I do. How many do you want me to read?
Or do you have some, George? Want to start with-
The only letters I've seen are the letters that were shared with the entire board. I haven't had any shared only with me.
Captain McRitchie, one's been shared at the, no, they were shared at city council, but they're not shared here.
Right. I have all the McRitchie
Okay.
letters.
You want to start those then?
I also have one that just,
And for clarification, just in case of length, we will give the letters.
Yep.
Also the 3 minutes.
yep. This letter is from Autumn Smith. Greetings. My name is Autumn Smith. I am a 2002 graduate of Hillsdale High School. Growing up in Hillsdale, Mitchell Public Library was a huge part of my life. We participated in all the events and regularly visited to check out a variety of materials. The library was an oasis of possibility for me. I have continued to follow the progress of the Hillsdale Community Library and know many people still in the area who love the library. They are offering such innovative programs and do a great job promoting the collections and programs on social media. I'm proud to call them my hometown library. However, I am deeply disappointed in the current state of affairs reflected in the May 20th board meeting. I understand Hillsdale is a conservative county. It was the same when I was growing up there 20 years ago. However, that does not change the fact that there are gay people in the service area. There are gay youth and families with 2 moms or 2 dads. Books that represent these families are not a political agenda. The political agenda is the pushback to these materials. Representation matters. It matters to be able to go into the library and see characters that have a similar experience as you. In a conservative place like Hillsdale, a gay youth might not feel seen, understood, or welcomed, but at least when they visit the library, they can find books that make them feel a little less alone. And in a time with ever-growing suicide rates, finding the right book at the right time at their local library can not only be life-affirming, but also life-saving. I urge the library board to do due diligence in researching the impact of inclusive materials for children and to not be swayed by the current political discourse which seeks to exclude and invalidate a portion of your service population. Thank you for your time. Autumn Smith.
This one is from Gail Seeley. Hello, I am writing in support of the library. I have used Hillsdale County Library for my whole life, almost 5 decades, and appreciate the breadth of information it has provided. When I was a child and teen, our family went to the old library weekly to pick out books. My mom always looked through the books to make sure they were appropriate. As an aside, given our family's conservative values, this approach worked for our family. As a college student, I interlibrary loaned often, especially when researching my thesis for my master's degree in 2000. Now I mostly count on library for recreational reading. I enjoy the wide range of topics and perspectives that are represented. Additionally, when I went through treatment for cancer several years ago, I appreciated being able to borrow books on integrating alternative treatments with my doctor's recommendations. I cannot imagine a world where a limited number of individuals would make choices for what I would be able to access based on their personal beliefs. As a therapist, valuing each client's perspective without inserting my own opinions or values is a huge part of the work I do. I appreciate our library doing the same. Having space for everyone's interests and ideology is a part of the library that I respect and rely on. Thank you. Please feel free to share this at the board meeting. It might be helpful. And Gail Seeley is a master's psychotherapist with EMDR training. Oh, you might have a couple duplicates here. Nope, this one is from Peggy Gillen. This letter is to the Hillsdale City Council and McRitchie Library Board regarding the recent discussion surrounding the banning of books that speak to various potentially controversial topics. Dear Hillsdale County City Council members, community leaders, and board of McRitchie Library, my name is Peggy Dave Gillen. I grew up in Hillsdale and spent a great deal of time at what was then the Mitchell Public Library. I no longer live there, but it holds a special place in my heart, and I visit when I can. I was just there last summer and was reminded of how charming Hillsdale is and how great the people are who make up this community. I am very disturbed to read about the proposed banning of books from the library. Do you not think the individuals who frequent the library are capable of deciding for themselves and their children what books they will read and what they will not? It is an example of incredible hubris for you all to think you have better judgment and knowledge regarding this topic and therefore know what is best for others. Intellectual freedom is important, and a library should be a place that people can go to get information on any and every topic. Whether or not it is controversial or not conservative or a difficult subject or one that makes you uncomfortable is irrelevant. If you are concerned about children being protected from topics that are not pretty in your eyes, let that be the job of their parents to teach them in an age-appropriate and effective manner so they grow up informed rather than shielded from reality. I sincerely hope that as members of the Library Board and City Council, you will adhere to the principles of the Michigan Library Association by respecting your patrons and upholding your responsibility to provide access to information. To access information and fight censorship. Thank you for your consideration. And Peggy Gillen is a Georgia State House of Representatives candidate.
This is dated June 3rd to the Board of Hillsdale Community Library and Hillsdale City Council. My name is Ann McRitchie O'Day. I grew up in Hillsdale and am a member of the McRitchie family, which has been an active and involved part of Hillsdale for more than 100 years. While I no longer live in town, it will always be a part of me, and I continue to stay interested in what is happening in the community. I was recently made aware of the proposal to restrict the acquisition of some children's books, as well as possibly some adult books. I'm extremely disturbed by this proposal. I grew up going to the Mitchell Public Library, now the McRitchie Library. It played a significant role in my childhood and teens, from attending story hour to spending hours exploring the shelves, to then tutoring younger kids there each week as a teenager. It was a retreat that helped expand my education and knowledge and nurture my love for adventure. I believe it is critically important that community libraries provide access to books for everyone, and that those governing the library do not restrict or ban books based on individual bias. Should parents choose to restrict their children's reading of specific books, that is their right, and they should do so accordingly. However, this should not be allowed at the expense of the rest of the community. It is critically important that the public library not be a place that restricts, but rather values intellectual freedom for all in the community. I sincerely hope that as members of the library board and the city council, you will adhere to the principles of the Michigan Library Association by upholding your responsibility to champion intellectual freedom and fight censorship. Thank you for taking the time to read this letter and for your consideration on this very important issue. Sincerely, Ann O'Day.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is also to the Board of Hillsdale Community Library and the Hillsdale City Council. Thank you for taking the time to read this letter. My name is Martha McRitchie. Although I no longer live in Hillsdale, I am proud of the fact that I was born and raised there and am a fourth-generation resident. I have continued to maintain contacts and interest in the community's affairs. I've recently become aware of the proposal to restrict acquisition of some children's books and possibly some adult books. I do not want to see the McRitchie Library or Hillsdale Community Library stoop to becoming the community's big brother and decide what books can be read. If parents want to supervise or restrict their own child's reading, they should do so, but this should not be allowed at the expense of any other adult or child. I value intellectual freedom and hope that all members of the City Council and Library Board would adhere to the principles of the Michigan Library Association. Their trustee manual, page 39, states, "The Library Board has the responsibility of championing the cause of intellectual freedom, which includes fighting censorship issues. I believe any concerns about the content of a book can be adequately and appropriately addressed using the procedure to remove a book from the shelves, which is already in place. Please keep me informed regarding these decisions. Thank you, Martha McRitchie." Hello, my name is Brian McRitchie. My roots in Hillsdale County run deep. I was born and raised there. A wing of the hospital is named after and dedicated to my grandfather. My father gave the funds to the city for the construction of the current library building. Our family name is on the side. My father's gift to the city was premised upon his belief in the need for intellectual freedom of all sorts. He believed open minds and open hearts were necessary for a free society. I'm writing to express my and my siblings' opposition to the proposed amendment and to censorship of any sort, regardless of semantic masks. The proposal would surely violate the spirit of my father's gift to the city and the purpose for which it was intended. It would allow an unelected body to dictate what information is available to the community. It is an obvious ploy to undermine the independence of the people of Hillsdale County. We urge you in the strongest of terms to reject the proposal. Thanks very much for your consideration. Brian McRitchie. Last one, I promise. Wednesday, June 1st. Dear City of Hillsdale, City Council members and the Board of Hillsdale Community Library. I'm writing to you to express my feelings on the recent issues in the Hillsdale Library. I was born and raised in Hillsdale, though have not been a resident for many years. Hillsdale had a huge influence on the person I've become, and I continue to have an active interest in the community. The library holds a very special place in my heart. As a child, I went for story hour more times than I can remember. As a teen, I researched high school papers, and as an adult, after a family tragedy, I found refuge and comfort. During all these times, I would wander, picking up random books, not caring what section I was in. There were no boundaries of where I could go. If I didn't understand, I asked and learned more. If the book was beyond my comprehension, I simply put it back on the shelf. By no means was I unique. People of all ages and genders did exactly the same thing, and there was a bond and comfort in being there together. Everyone was welcome. I feel the current movement to restrict library content will destroy the opportunity for today's community to have similar library experiences. What happens now to the child who is embarrassed and afraid to ask about abuse, sex, addiction, or gender identity? Should they go to the internet with no filters, confusing and frightening the child even further? History has shown over and over that fear and misinformation lead to hatred and violence. Our library director has already received threats. I have a hard time believing the people of Hillsdale truly want to follow this road when we know where it leads. To quote Walter Cronkite, "Whatever the cost of our libraries, the price is cheap compared to that of an ignorant nation." The alternative is to allow the library, with accurate information, the guidelines that are already in place, and available staff for questioning to do its job. Please do not jeopardize the community's right to intellectual freedom. The board has a duty to defend this right as evidenced by the Michigan Library Association's trustee manual, which reads, "The library board has the responsibility of championing the cause of intellectual freedom, which includes fighting censorship issues." Per the Cambridge Dictionary, the word championing means to support, defend, or fight for a person, belief, right, or principle enthusiastically. Please do your job as board members and champion Hillsdale's intellectual freedom. With greatest sincerity, Lynn McRitchie.
All right, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the financial reports. You all have the links to these reports. If anyone has any questions, they'll probably refer to the city since I did not prepare those, and I don't think any of us feel comfortable interpreting those. So do we make a motion to accept what, does anyone have any questions?
Well, I don't think we can take
Okay.
visitor questions
Okay.
during.
So if they have questions, we'll refer them to the city. Do we have a motion?
My question was, since you were reading the letters and stuff, then that should make the podium still open. I would like to speak if possible.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Certainly, that's
certainly,
fine.
we can continue visitor comment, so, sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Please.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Is it on?
Well, speak into it.
How about now?
That sounds
There you
good.
go.
All right.
Okay, my name is Dennis Wainscott, and what I have to say, a lot of the letters that were written there and some other things was that the people wanted things taken away. My understanding in the last two meetings that I was at is that nobody that I know of was asking for anything to be taken away, but to be put into an appropriate area, you know, but never have I heard anybody say they want them completely out of here, okay? And the McRitchies and those that wrote those letters, that sounds like the kind of information they were getting. The other thing is, one of the people that were speaking made a comment, I think either at the council meeting or here, and said, well, the Bible talks about, rape and stuff. Yes, it does, matter of fact. The Bible talks about a lot of things. It talks how to raise your children, how to raise your family, and it talks about rape and incest and everything else that you could find in there. But the thing is, we're not here to mandate or ask people to do away or to abolish this type of writings because it's out there, it's in people's minds. I'm legally blind, I can't read anymore. Okay, so I turn around and I listen to some of the audio books. I don't like, because I get them from the government, I don't like them because I can't pick out what I want to listen to. But, the things is that we need to get it right. I didn't think anybody, in ministry or anything here was asking you to abolish anything or do away with anything, but to put it in an age-appropriate area. And that's the only thing I have to say on that. Because, let's have the record straight for that if we could. Okay, thank you.
Sir,
Yes.
for the minutes, how do you spell your last name? Forgive me.
Oh, Wainschott.
Got it, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
No.
Okay. All right. So do I have a motion to accept the financial reports, or, oh, you have a question?
No. I move to accept the financial report as presented.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is the circulation report. Heidi was kind enough to give me some stats for library events. For the month of May, Lego Club, for example, had 25 participants. Science Club had 9, although apparently at today's program there were 12. Storytime has had, Sit and Stitch has had 104. Storytime has had 29. 31 craft in a bags went out. There has been participation in yoga and other activities for a total of 215 for the month of May that participated in different programs at the library. That's a little bit down from 296, which was the high in the month of March, I believe, which is a little bit longer month. That, just to point out, that's a month, obviously Bree was here and Lauren started and a lot of active programming started. And I compared that backwards to previous months, last fall, when our programs had 41 and 53 participants. So from going from 40 and 53 participants to 296 is very commendable to our previous staff. And sadly, just to make a comment, our last family night was an origami activity, and we had a guest come to do that. We had just 4 participants. And I appreciate what Jaminda said about, having families come together and what Lauren said about summer reading. And I really hope that some of the controversy does not take away from our participation. Like, I'm thinking maybe that happened with origami, or maybe it was just the night and the situation of the interest of the topic. But that was a little sad for the presenter and the staff. But we move forward, and hopefully our May statistics for programming were really good. I don't have, do you have a link to the actual circulation data?
Yeah, it's linked in the agenda.
Okay,
Yeah.
do
And
you want to comment on that, George, at all?
the circulation report?
Right. Do we need to?
I have no further comments or
Okay.
discussion regarding circulation.
All right, well, actually, I'm a little confused here. The next item was director's report, and that would have been the program stats, so I apologize for that. The other item under director's report was that Lauren was staying on as a librarian, children's librarian, and obviously you heard her report on summer reading. The next on the agenda is under communications.
Forgive me for interrupting.
Sorry.
Do we need to move to accept the circulation report and then the director's
We never
report?
do.
No.
But thanks for asking.
That's the thing. Okay.
Under communications, there's a Woodlands Library Cooperative Report. There is not one at this time. I think an advocacy group met earlier this week on Monday, specifically to talk about threats with book banning. Grants, I think Bree discussed that at the last meeting. All the grants that she had applied for that came through. And I know that Bree did meet with Scott Kress prior to Scott also resigning, to discuss what needed to happen next with those grants, to complete application process and to complete paperwork. And I'll be working with the staff on those as they help fill me in, and other volunteers may step forward as well that are more familiar with grant writing. So hopefully that will be carried through. Next is policy committee update, and I'm going to let George take the lead on this one. And it was just specifically about making amendments to our policy.
So the subcommittee, which consisted of myself and Karen and the previous director, Brianna Barton, we met to discuss specifically a proposal, which is the language of which is linked in the public agenda, to go over the process whereby we come up with amendments to library policy. And I think I'm not going to read it all aloud here, but what we've done is we've set in place a procedure and a timeline whereby any new policy proposals have to be shared with the rest of the board by a certain number of days, 7 business days prior to the meeting at which the proposal will be considered. The full text of the proposal must be linked in the public agenda no less than 3 business days prior to the said meeting. The board is then free to discuss and vote on the proposal. The board may only vote to approve a proposal as written and published. So if we think some adjustments to the proposal are necessary in order to secure acceptance, then we kick it back to the person who wrote the proposal, or we kick it back to a subcommittee, and then it has to come up at the next meeting again. But what this means is that we're never going to adopt a proposal, the full text of which was not published at least, again, 3 days prior to the meeting at which it is considered. There's also a recommendation that any substantial changes to library policy should be reviewed by the city attorney, and that any changes to the manual should then result in a republication of the manual itself and a notice that changes have been made to the manual. We point out that this policy only applies to substantive changes to the library policy manual or bylaws and doesn't affect minor corrections, changes to formatting, etc. So that's pretty much it. I think the subcommittee was agreed on substance of all points. For being my first experience on a subcommittee, it was comparatively painless, which was nice. I've heard such terrible things about subcommittees, but this was actually okay. Are there any questions or discussion from my fellow board members here? No? Okay. I have already, being the sort of person I am, I've already picked up a lot of nitpicks about grammar and so forth that I'm probably going to go in and fix before we toss this out there, but only minor changes, I think.
So that will be on the agenda for next, with the corrections, and then we'll vote on it at the next meeting.
Yeah, but as pointed out in the policy itself, minor corrections such as grammatical corrections don't require a vote to approve, only notice to the board at the next meeting.
So is your wish to have that motion made today?
Yeah. Well, I'll go ahead and move that we accept the procedure for adding. Am I still live? Yes. I will go ahead and move that we accept. I will move that we accept the procedure for adding or amending library policies, and that it be added to the manual.
Support.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. As we mentioned earlier, when we did the amendments to the agenda under old business, we moved up director review procedures and material selection and book displays. But we are not going to comment on those tonight, or we have nothing new to add. The next item is director applicants and interim director. It was previously put out in a couple emails that we have an interim director. Is that what this comes down? Yes, in Leanne Rumler. Leanne wanted us to clarify that to the public and also formally that she is interested in being a volunteer only. She does not want the title interim director. She has a full-time job. I just want to assure everyone that Leanne is accredited librarian with her master's degree. She is working in the library capacity. She has worked on this staff previously. She has also served on our board. In years past, she has served on Hillsdale Community School District Board, and she is also actively serving on the hospital board at this time. So she is used to serving in different capacities, and I think the staff will welcome her. They're excited to have her back. Most of them have worked with her in the past. She will volunteer and do some of our statistics, some book purchasing, hopefully help with some of the financial bills as those come in, and also communicate with the staff and the city in terms of hours and responsibilities. And we look forward to having Leanne on board to help out, at least in this interim period. But again, she is not technically the interim director. And she has made it clear she wants to serve just as a volunteer. In terms of director applicants, just going again with, I want to point out something that someone spoke, I think, Jamenda. Just to clarify, librarians are pretty much all ALA connected in some way or affiliated. That's just kind of the code of ethics. But do you want to talk about the applications we have?
I should
That
probably
would help.
address
You
that
are a
clarification.
librarian.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I am also a librarian with a master's in library science that I got from Wayne State, which is an ALA certified school. I'm a dues-paying member of the ALA. I should clarify that anybody with my degree, with a master's in library and information science, that's going to come out of any ALA accredited school. However, in our current position with our library, given our library size, technically the only rule regarding a size 3 library is that somebody can have, anybody with a bachelor's in any field is qualified. Study in library science preferred, but anybody with a bachelor's in any field is qualified, provided they go through an online certification in, I believe, library administration, at least within the first year of being hired. So while anybody with a master's in library science, such as I am, will have their degree from something accredited by the ALA, the ALA is not a governing body that directly controls things like public libraries. It certifies library schools, and it acts as a professional organization, a professional membership organization, but it's not a directly governing organization. So, and I know plenty of librarians with my degree who are not dues-paying members of the ALA. So a librarian can have their degree and say, yeah, I got my degree from an ALA school, but I don't care for what the ALA is doing. I'm not a dues-paying member. There are plenty of members of the profession who adopt that stance.
Thank you for clarifying that. What do you want to do in terms of, what is your pleasure in terms of moving forward with applicants? We have not had a subcommittee to study those and to make recommendations.
Well, we've had time. May I?
Oh, sure.
Okay. So we have received, first thing, the city has posted an application, an avenue for application, and they've also posted the job on Indeed. Have either of you gotten access to the Indeed applications yet?
I have not.
I have not.
Okay.
I've gotten them sent to me,
Okay. So the thing is, one of us needs to get in touch with the city, and Karen, as acting, as VP and therefore acting president, maybe you should get in touch with the city, and so we can get access to the Indeed platform and see. I believe I inquired with the city and said, have you had any applications through Indeed or through the form you posted? But I haven't seen any yet. But aside from the application on the city website and on Indeed, the board has been directly sent multiple resumes and a couple of cover letters. And I wonder whether it would be prudent. Have you all had a chance to read the resumes and cover letters that have been forwarded so far?
to an extent.
Okay. So I haven't had a chance to closely review the applications we've received so far, at least the resumes we've received so far. And because we can't talk privately as a board about what we do and don't approve. I would strongly encourage my fellow board members to especially closely consider the application we've received from Joyce Gindran, who provided her application to Scott Kress as the previous president, and whom he provided to us. I believe based on the applications we've seen so far, just the resumes and cover letters we've received so far, I believe this is the person who fits most closely with the profile of somebody who's not only eminently qualified, but is also already resident in the area and has experience and knowledge of the local area. So I would closely consider her application, and perhaps I would strongly encourage that we come together again soon to decide who we're going to extend a formal invitation to interview for, because I think once we've got a really good person, we're going to want to secure an interview as soon as possible.
Thank you, George. we want to recommend a cutoff date for accepting applications at this time? The one that you are recommending does not have a master's degree or she is working in the library, but does not have a master's degree in library science.
Which, and again,
But we're just,
is not necessary
right.
for our size.
For our size population, our director does not need to have a master's in library science, but we're really close to that number based on, if a new census came out, we would be required to have one, as we have had in the past.
And I believe, my understanding is that if we had somebody who came on board when we were a class 3, and then we grew to be, what is it, the class 2, that's a level
Class
up?
4.
It's 4. If we grew, I think that the person would be grandfathered in. I don't think we'd have to kick them out because they didn't have the MLIS. Yeah. But we should.
But they have to complete the certification process.
Yes, and that's something that's Gindren at least almost certainly has already done if she's currently acting as a library
Okay.
director. Yeah.
Right. So again, I asked, do we want to have a date for, a cutoff date for accepting applications?
I don't.
Or should we,
I don't think we need to have a cutoff date at this time, but I do believe before we end that we should set a follow-up meeting to review specifically the director applicants that we've received to be able to move forward with our first choice, second choice, so on.
good idea. Okay, thank you. The next item is volunteer interest, and I think that's back to George again, right?
So I asked that this item be put on the agenda because I've heard from multiple people that they are interested in walking in the doors, asking how they can help, seeing how local volunteers in the community can be of assistance. The only reason I wanted to put this on here is because I wanted to turn around and ask the staff, and this is something we can approach the staff with kind of outside of the meeting and find out what, if there are tasks around the library that volunteers in the local community could pitch in and help out with. And if so, what they are, what are their needs? So I would move that the board formally or approach the staff and ask: are there things that local volunteers could help out with? Could somebody come in and help keep the books shelved? Are you comfortable training somebody in Dewey Decimal, something like that? Because I've had many people asking, what can I do? I'd like to come in. I'd like to help out. And we need to turn around and ask the staff, what do you need? So that's all.
Okay. And
Annette, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but is that something the library staff would welcome?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And what, that is one form that I know Brianna Bard did develop before she left and updated the volunteer interest form, didn't she? Okay, thank you for clarifying that, Annette. The next item on the agenda is library board emails, and we'll refer back.
Hello again. So one thing I've noticed at other public libraries is board members have dedicated email addresses that they use for all official communications between the board, and that they publish for so that the public can reach out to them with comments, questions, communications, etc. We just use whatever our current email addresses are, and those aren't published. And I'm especially concerned that there's no way for members of the public to communicate with board members except unless they A, turn up at a meeting, or B, find out what our personal email addresses are, which seems a bit off. So I inquired with the city, can the city provide us official email addresses? I believe my understanding from the communications we saw is that's not really something they can do, and it would cost them money to provide us with dedicated email addresses. So what I'm wondering is maybe at least we could create something like a free Gmail email address that's dedicated to the Community Library Board and is monitored by the Secretary of the Board, who among the normal duties of a secretary monitors communications, that we publish along with our information both on the library website and the city website, so that people can send us communications without having to find out what our personal email addresses are. So is there any other question there, or?
I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea. I already use a third email address for board stuff, but that's just because I have one through my position on Hillsdale Community Schools Board, and nobody else has that. So we could all sign up for a Gmail address and have it associated with, in some manner, the Hillsdale Community Library name, which I think would be a good idea, would give people another way of contacting us with any comments, concerns, questions, so on.
Do we need to make a motion on that? Or will it be linked on our website, our Hillsdale Library website?
Yeah, the idea is that the email address would be published along the board information, both on the library website and on the city website, where board information appears.
Do we know, in order to make a motion, do we know what format we want that address to be?
I think we can make a motion that. Yeah, well, we can make a motion that one of us, again, it's kind of like having to come up with the full text of the proposal.
Right.
I would suggest that there be a single email address that's just for the board, that all communications go to. The first question is, should we all have email addresses?
Yes.
Individual email addresses.
I would say yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then we need to come up with a common format, so we can just say, I can just ask Jim, will you come up with a format that's the common format of @gmail.com or whatever for all board members, and it's like first initial, last name, _ HCL board, something like that. So I will make a motion to request that Jim Bowen come up with a standard email format for free email addresses for the board members to use to be published for official board business. Does that sound right?
Yes.
Okay.
As long as you have the wording down.
Yes.
I will support that.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The next item on the agenda is board applications. It has been past precedent that when people apply to be on the board, that the board members review those applications and make a recommendation to our mayor to then take them to city council to be approved. And then they're officially, they take the oath and they're on the board. In the past, we have not had a lot of applications. And in fact, when Mr. Palladino was on the board, at that time, we were short a board member, and he was the only applicant at that time. And so that was the recommendation we made to the mayor. In the meantime, however, good things come out of controversy, and we have had several great applicants for our board position. However, in the meantime, our mayor has reached out to us, and also it's been on WCSR apparently, that his plan is to name a board member for us. Again, that's not the precedent that has been established historically with our library board, but apparently that is well within his rights. At this time, he will take that name to the board or to the city council at the next meeting. They just met this past Monday, so it'll be a week and a half. I, however, feel that we have some really great applicants, and I feel that the mayor did not discuss this with us to come up and look at some of the other applicants and give them the opportunity to find out why they wanted to serve and what their qualifications were. The one that I was particularly interested in is Miss Liz Voorhees, who is here tonight. And the reason I really thought long and hard about this, or it didn't have to be long and hard, it's just superb. She comes to us as an occupation of a librarian and a retired teacher. She has her master's in library and information science from Wayne State University in 2006 and a bachelor's arts in liberal studies from California University. She is new to the area, and comes to us from Marshall. And she has volunteered at the Marshall Library. So she not only is degreed, but has plenty of experience. And as an educator and a lifelong learner, she understands the importance of literacy and the effect libraries can have in the community. She chose to move to Hillsdale because they like the vibe of the city, and she's looking to make a positive impact in the community. She's already a supporter of our library and has applied for a library card within days of our move, and she has been at several of our Friends of the Library Board meetings and has been involved in several projects already. So I would like to make a motion that we recommend Liz Voorhees to be our Board of Trustee member. How do I word this? I would like to recommend that this name be taken to City Council for approval. And if the mayor would like to take his choice first, I understand that his right to do so. But if this cannot be a first choice, I would like it to be another choice that the City Council has an opportunity to have in case the mayor's choice is not voted on. We are not losing another month waiting for another meeting to recommend someone.
So we did receive notification from the mayor that he had chosen the next appointee, which, as Karen pointed out, is within his right. While he says in the past, receiving the board's recommendation has been a courtesy, it's not legally required. It is simply a direct appointee based on his choice. And even the process for how the applications are gotten from the city clerk, how they're submitted, it's a bit muddy. And I think one issue we need to clear up going forward is clarification in the process. I'll also point out, and I'm sure the mayor would not object to my pointing out, that his appointee is among the applications we have seen. It's not an unknown quantity. It is one of the persons whose applications we have received. I would say I am given the mayor's decision and given his justifications to the board, I am not comfortable contradicting his decision in this. So I will not. I am not planning on voting to recommend somebody other than whom the mayor has chosen as his appointee.
I had communication from the mayor regarding this as well. And when he first said that he had somebody he was going to appoint, I just asked if something has changed. He said that it was courtesy in the past, and he's correct. Library policy manual states that the mayor will appoint somebody with the approval of city council to serve on the library board. And I just said, you know what, you're certainly within your rights. However, in the past, whoever the mayor has been at the time has gone with the recommendation from the library board. Now I have a question though. I would like to see us send another name. Again, this is completely in the mayor's hands. I would only send it with the information that this is somebody that we've reviewed. The decision is ultimately going to be up to the mayor, which of the two people he chooses. I believe both choices are good candidates. I guess I could go either way at this point, but.
Actually, it's the council. Mayor takes the recommendation.
True.
Council would vote. And my recommendation is to give an alternative name so that if city council for some reason does not approve the mayor's choice, we are not waiting for another month with an open slot on our board.
I would tend to agree with that. And to me, I don't see it as trying to overrule, because it's ultimately the mayor's decision. And he may have already made his decision and that's what it's going to be, and if so, that's fine. But I think having more than one candidate available is not a bad option at this point.
I would say I would be most comfortable simply accepting the appointee as chosen by the mayor at this stage based on communications thus far. I would only say at this point that if it came down to a debate of the qualifications and the applications that we have seen so far, I would personally support the application of Jaminda Springer. But I am not going to vote to move that name be put up as an alternative to the appointee as chosen by the mayor.
Okay, fair enough.
So I made a motion to nominate and at least recommend this name. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is Scott Kress's resignation. As you know, he was our president, and after a rather contentious last meeting, he chose to resign, citing personal and family and time conflicts. We don't normally vote on a resignation, so I don't think there's a motion needed here. And I think I'll just leave it at that as a point of information and formality. The next item on the agenda is board comments. Because this was brought up in visitors' comments, I just want to read the oath of office that we each took at City Hall. It was just, I solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Michigan, and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of the Library Board of the City of Hillsdale to the best of my knowledge and the ability. So help me God. We raise our right hand, say I do, sign our name and date. And these are all on file with Katie Price at the city clerk's office. So I know people had asked about the oath, and I just had to ask Katie for a copy of that again for our mention. Someone also mentioned the trustee manual, and this is the 2021 Michigan Public Library Trustee Manual that we're operating under. A lot of our policies are pretty much directly from here, but as George mentioned, we are working on policies in our own individual Hillsdale Library Trustee Manual Policy Book. Anyone else have any comments?
I would like to thank everyone that came again tonight. I'd also like to thank all those people that applied to be on the library board. We do appreciate your interest and your willingness to serve. And I would also like to say, with respect to Scott, I'm sad to see him go. And I had a short conversation with him just due to his health, family commitments, and so on. He was, and this is my words, not his, I think just at the end of his rope, so to speak. It was affecting his health, and he just didn't feel like he could continue and be effective. But I am sad to see him go.
For my part, just a quick clarification I should get from my fellow board members. Now that the work of the subcommittee to formulate a procedure for implementing policies has accepted that procedure, now that we have a formal procedure for amending policies and adding new policies, I would strongly encourage that we forge on and go through both the manual and the bylaws and engage in a section by section review and update of those. And I intend to communicate to the rest of the board my intention of tackling that. And I don't know if we need to motion to make me a subcommittee, but I'm now that I'm into it, I want to keep going.
I mean, as the policy stated, I mean, each individual board member can
Right.
submit proposed
So,
updates.
just a heads up, that's going to be coming from me. That'll be coming down the pipe. I want to go through this thing and clean it up.
All right?
Do I And again, Jim, thank you for saying that. I was remiss in not thanking all the applicants for library board. I really appreciate people stepping up and offering to serve on a board. That's a commitment, and I appreciate your interest and enthusiasm. Another outlet for involvement, obviously, George talked about volunteering, and Annette agreed that we could use that. And we also have a Friends of the Library group that could also use support. And we'll be reforming. The only other thing I have is our next meeting date is July 14th at 6 p.m. And do I have a motion to adjourn, or do we have any other comments?
Can I have a question? I wasn't clear on the vote you took. You didn't announce if that passed or failed.
Which vote?
Wasn't it to recommend someone as an alternate?
Yes, it's
passed.
passed.
It passed 2-1.
Thank you.
What was the date of the next meeting?
July 14th at 6 p.m.
And should we note that we will likely be meeting before then to discuss director applications?
Would we like to set a date for
We
that?
do need to set a date for that.
But that, we don't have to do that this instant.
Okay.
We can.
Right.
But that will be posted when we do have a date for director applications to review. That will be also under open meeting, is that correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yep.
Okay.
And so as soon as we figure out a date that works for us and a cutoff date for applications, we should get that up in public. Yeah.
I would just suggest that we maybe wait to do that until after city council approves our new
Yeah,
board
so
member.
our new member is part of that
Good point.
process. Yes, that's a good point.
Yes.
Good point, thank you. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Also move.
Second.
Okay, we move in it, or all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for coming tonight, I
you.
appreciate it.